Hello.
Anurad, how are you?
Good, good. How about you?
Good, good. Very well, thank you. Hey, Trish, good to see you.
Hi, Laksmi. Thanks for having us again.
Oh, of course. Thank you for participating. Jai Krishna, as always, thank you. And
Gayatri wanted me to
Maha-
say hello to you, although you spoke to him today, but he wanted me to pass along another hello to you.
oh, okay, thank you. And Maharatri Jaya, welcome. So let's begin. Yeah. Good evening. Welcome to Gita Wisdom with Lakshmi this evening, March 11th at 7 p.m. So we'll begin right into the Bhagavad Gita. Previous classes we've dabbled with the what is the introduction to the Gita, gave some little bit of history and a little bit of the philosophical reasons behind Gita. Now we're going to dive into the Gita itself. And when we talk about the first chapter is called Vishada Yoga. If you'll notice in any Gita uh, translation, specifically the more academic ones, you'll see each chapter is entitled as a yoga. So the first yoga is called, the first chapter is entitled Vishada Yoga. And Vishada means despair. Now, this was one of the biggest dilemmas I had in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita. Two problems or issues that I dealt with when I first started reading Gita. One was, why is a great spiritual treatise spoken on the battlefield? And then the second one was, um, why did Arjuna, who was an elevated soul, become dejected? Because Dishada means dejection. So it's the yoga of dejection. And we'll speak a little bit about that because I think that particular point has a great deal of relevance to today, who we are in the 21st century and what we're going through right now in terms of world and world events. So Vishada means the yoga of dejection. Vishada means despair. Yoga has many meanings. In the Gita, Krishna first introduces yoga in the second chapter. He first talks about it. And the word that he uses in Sanskrit is samatvam. And samatvam means equipoised, equal balanced. Because if the mind is disturbed, it's very difficult to dive within. We just can't bring ourselves to do it. It's kind of like, if you're moving your head and then you're trying to read, it's almost impossible. If the head's moving, if the head's rotating, it's almost impossible to read. Same thing. We can't understand our thoughts and control our thoughts if they're always turning and churning. The word that Patanjali uses in the Bhagavad Gita is
Right.
vritti, and vritti means to
Right.
turn. So
Sure.
the turning of the mind, the turning and the churning, as long as that's going on, it's very difficult to see within and to understand the true nature of the self. So in Vishada Yoga, we have this understanding that Arjuna is in despair. Now, when you're depressed, there's two things that can happen when you are depressed. One is emotionally, you could become paralyzed, right? And you're not motivated or encouraged or enlivened or enthused to do anything. So people who are in the middle of depression or dejection, quite often they withdraw from society and withdraw from the things they would normally do and enjoy. So that's the one thing that can happen when we're in the throes of depression. The other thing that could happen is depression can bring us.
Lakshmi, you're on mute.
Okay, you can hear me now? I'm unmuted now, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I always have difficulty with the computer. That's why I have my son here. He's my tech head here. So the second thing that can happen when you fall into depression or dejection, it can actually serve as an impetus, a catalyst to get out of it, to rise above it, to learn something from it. I mean, if we make a mistake, you can consider it a mistake if you don't learn anything from it. But if you learn something from your mistake, which is human nature, we all make mistakes, and in the course of our life, sometimes we make poor choices. But if we actually learn from our mistake, then it's no longer a mistake, it's a lesson. So when we become depressed, if we can see that in the positive light and use that as a catalyst to get out of it and to progress on our path, then that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. So that's the way Krishna introduces to Arjuna the system of yoga. Yoga means, as I said, samatvam in the second chapter, which means equipoised, but also as is translated in relationship to the first chapter, Vishada Yoga, it means yoga can mean methodology. It is the methodology by using dejection or despair as a catalyst to view it in the positive sense so that we rise above it and we learn from it. And that's the whole structure of the Gita. Yes, Arjuna, he has all of his reasoning for not wanting to battle, not wanting to do battle, to fight against his relatives, his grandfather, his cousins, his uncles, his teachers, etc., his friends. He has all the reasons to do it, which causes the dejection. But when he realizes that this dejection, this depression, is not doing him any good. It's not helping him. It's not helping him to make the right choice in terms of his life. So, and Krishna even says that to Arjuna. He tells him that you're a noble soul. You are a noble warrior. This is not worthy. This dejection, this mood of dejection is not worthy of you. You should use it in such a way that it becomes an inspiration for you. So Vishad Yoga means that. Yoga or Viyoga. Yoga means, another definition of yoga means to connect. So Krishna is advising Arjuna, use your despair in such a way, hear from me, and then connect to the teachings that I am giving you and ultimately to me as the Supreme. Viyoga means to separate. When you put the prefix on there, V, it means now the opposite of what yoga means. Yoga means to connect, to link up, union. So that's the most commonly understood definition of yoga. Viyoga means to separate. So that which connects us to the Supreme, what Krishna is teaching Arjuna, the methodology of yoga to rise above the negative emotion of despair and depression, that only causes separation. Separation is the cause of our suffering. One, one thing that the great saintly personalities who have commented on the Bhagavad Gita through the course of history is one of the main sources of dejection is attachment. When we are attached to things which inevitably and invariably are temporary. See, this is the real key. We are not temporary beings according to the Bhagavad Gita. Nasato vidyate bhavo nabhavo vidyate sataha. That means that which is eternal has no cessation. There's no ending to it. And that's reality. But that which is temporary, that has no duration, that is illusion. So if we invest all the God-given intelligence and reasoning power, that ability, if we invest it in the temporary, and we become naturally attached to those things, because Krishna later on says, by contemplation, one develops attachment. So whatever we contemplate on long enough, we'll develop an attachment for that. So if we contemplate, if we use our intelligence, our rare ability to reason, to look at things with reasoning power, if we use that erroneously in such a way that we become attached to the temporary, so the end result of that attachment is dejection, depression. So Arjuna was investing his thought process on judgments that he was making about his situation, which were erroneous by its nature. You know, oh, if I kill them, but Krishna later on says the soul doesn't die. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha. The soul doesn't die, the soul doesn't wither by the wind, the soul is not burned by fire, the soul is not affected by any of these things because the soul is made of immortal substance, which is called Brahman. But the soul in this world, when it comes into this world, it is surrounded, its environment, its field of activities, kshetra, its field of activities become the elements around us. And our main focus in ignorance, our main focus is to interact with these elements because we're surrounded, our body, surrounded by these elements. We're actually enveloped in these elements. Earth is described, anything that has is solid. Earth, like our bones. Fire, the ability to digest is considered the fire within the body. Earth, water, anything that's liquid is said to contain water. So, of course, we have blood and other fluids within our body. So we can see earth, water, fire, air. We breathe in air, we have air within our lungs, air, oxygen is there. So that's another thing. Earth, water, air, fire, ether. Ether means space, the space between things. And ether also is the medium for sound to travel. Sound travels on ether. So we are encased, enveloped in these elements. And it's very easy in ignorance, if we're in ignorance of who we really are, it's very easy to become only relating to those elements as the self. And Krishna tells Arjuna that's the number one mistake. So the mistake Krishna tells Arjuna that he's making is his perception is based on the senses reaching out to the objects of the senses. For the eyes, things that we see, that's the objects of sight. For the nose, things that we smell, that's the objects of the sense of smell. Sound vibration is the objects of the sense of hearing. Taste, the object of the sense of the tongue, and touch, the object of the sense of skin. Skin is the largest organ that we have, and it's also highly used in communication. Like, for instance, when we feel affection towards someone, what do? When you feel affection, you have a child, right? Even if it's a small child or your child's already grown up. What's the first thing you do when you see them? You hug them, right? That exchange, that touch, that interplay, that's senses and sense objects. But the problem with that is senses and sense object interaction is temporary. It's always changing, right? We have these senses, and the senses are immature, and we see and hear and touch and taste and smell in a particular way when we're babies, and that matures a little bit when we become young children, when we become teenagers. Again, that change. We're in a constantly changing environment while we're situated amongst these elements. So that changing environment does not bring peace, especially if we're relating to it and to it only. That's what ignorance is described as, avidya. Avidya means no knowledge. So if you don't have knowledge of who you really are, and ignorance means we don't really understand that we're something beyond these elements, that these elements are really just a temporary place to hang our hat on. It's like you have a lease on your apartment called the body. And when we don't know that, when we're in avidya, when we're in ignorance, and we're not aware of that, we become attached to everything in relationship to the senses and their sense objects. Now, it's that attachment to the temporary which is ultimately not fulfilling. Why is it not fulfilling? Because who we really are, we're eternal beings. And the only thing that provides us with fulfillment, satisfaction, contentment, ultimately happiness, is to reconnect with that nature and to see things from that perspective. And then when we do that, when we start to fill our life up with vidya, with knowledge, and knowledge gives us the eyes to see, jnana chakshush. That means the vision, the ability to see through the eyes of knowledge. And that's why Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita. Why did he spend that time right before the battle instructing Arjuna, going through this whole Leela, or this play? Arjuna really wasn't an illusion. He assumed that role. Why? For our benefit. Not only for our benefit, but for humanity for all time. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken over 5,000 years ago, and for all those years, up until this present moment as we speak, Bhagavad Gita is being studied, because those who are sincerely seeking for truth, it's not a mistake that you came across Bhagavad Gita. Either you performed in some previous life some activity in relationship to the wisdom of the Gita, which you either studied it or practiced bhakti yoga, or had a relationship which inspired you to start thinking deeper. Something that occurred that put us in connection. In my case, I remember very, very clearly to this day, over 55 years ago, I remember when I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, it was like, where have you been all my life? When you meet that person, that friend who you immediately have a connection with, where have you been all my life? The Gita, that wisdom, I remember very clearly, in the most unlikely of places in an epic poetry class, I came in contact with the Bhagavad Gita. And it sang to me because the Bhagavad Gita is a song. So it's lilting verses and it's the melodious wisdom that was generated for the Bhagavad Gita captured my ears. And I began at that particular point in time. There's no rhyme or reason to it. If you look at it, I had no previous connection, or at least known connection with Gita. But as soon as I was put in contact with it, then things began to generate, things began to happen. And I'm so grateful to all of you, Amy and Johanna and Trish and all the newcomers to this, as well as some of the oldies like Shakti and Bharat Shreshtas and others, Anuradha. I'm so grateful that you're here because just putting yourself in contact, and this goes for me too. I'm not saying that I'm above this. I'm not. Every time I read Gita, I say, where have you been all my life? And why haven't I been reading more of you? And why haven't I been associating my intellect more with you? And I've been reading for, since 1971, the Bhagavad Gita. So but every time I pick up the Gita again, I just say, wow, there's just nothing more satisfying than this. It's why it's speaking directly to us through the covering, through the eightfold covering of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. It's speaking through that covering and it's dissipating the fog that those elements cause. When the soul comes in contact with material energy, if the soul is not steeped in its innate wisdom, its intrinsic knowledge, then it can get covered to reality and
Allah.
begin to, yeah, yeah. Is someone saying something or is that a mistake? So that's the reality. When we come in contact with the eternal, we begin to experience our true nature. So as long as we're in ignorance of that true nature and act only in connection with the interaction of the senses and the sense objects, ultimately there is no ability to experience the true satisfaction and true contentment. Does anyone have any question or any observation or comment they'd like to make at this point? If not, I'll continue. Okay, good. So this whole methodology of the Bhagavad Gita Krishna is giving. That was another thing I pondered over when I started my sojourn on the path of Bhagavad Gita. Why did uh, why did Arjuna, fall into this particular dilemma? He was an advanced soul. Why did he do that? And then when Krishna advised him, why did Krishna advise him as the method of becoming free from his dejection, his depression, his illusion was the path of yoga? I wondered why yoga, of all things. And once you begin to understand how deep yoga is and how many nuances there are to the word yoga and the understanding of yoga, then you can see. If you just think it's asana, maybe makes no sense, or pranayama maybe makes no sense. But when you think of yoga as a methodology that can help the mind to become peaceful, as I said, if you're doing this, you can't read, right? You're moving too much. And if we allow the mind to move like this, to turn and churn, then it's really not in a position to see with clarity the self. So the methodology of yoga, of the hearing process, the speaking, chanting process, hearing process, remembering process, all of those different processes that are there, that helps to settle us down. And that gives us the ability to explore and meditate upon and try to understand Krishna's introduction into the methodology, which is distinction between matter and spirit. So that's kind of an overview of the Gita. Let's go right to the Gita itself, okay? Because one of the most important verses is the first verse. So I'm going to spend a little time on the first verse. It's a question. It's a question that Dhritarashtra, the blind interim king of this Kuru dynasty, it's a question that he poses to his teacher, Sanjay. And really, that question is answered by the entirety of the Gita when we really get down to what he's asking. So there's two sets of dialogue, over 700 verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Over close to 600 of those verses are spoken by Krishna and Arjuna. Krishna speaking the vast majority of those 600 verses, 525, something like that. And then the rest is Sanjaya making observations or comments to Dhritarashtra. So it's a kind of a secondary dialogue that's embedded within the Bhagavad Gita to give further clarity as to what's being spoken. So it opens up with the secondary personalities, Dhritarashtra, the king, who's temporarily in charge. And I think I went over this, but his brother was the emperor of this vast kingdom known as Varsha or India, which extended far beyond India's borders today. It was a vast kingdom. And Pandu was the emperor who had 5 sons. And when he died prematurely, the inheritance of the throne went to his 5 sons, the oldest son, Yudhisthira, being the person that would be the emperor, and the 4 other sons, Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, and Sahadev, they would be ministers in service to the oldest brother, Yudhisthira, the emperor. But they were too young at his death, so they were Dhritarashtra, the brother, was made the interim king. Now, one may ask, why was Dhritarashtra only appointed interim king? Because he was actually the older brother. And just as in the case of the 5 Pandava boys, the 5 Pandava brothers, Yudhisthira was the heir apparent to the throne, and the others would be in his service in various ministerial positions. That's the way, tradition has it. So why did tradition, why was it not applicable in this particular case? Who can tell me why Dhritarashtra was not appointed the permanent king? Shakti, what do you think, Shaktiman? Are you there?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'm here. Even I'm thinking, Prabhu. I don't know the answer.
Why do you think,
Hmm.
right? According even today, right? The older son is considered like the father, right? Even in Indian culture, right?
Yes, yeah.
What to speak of then? right? So Pandu was younger, yet he was the emperor. Dhritarashtra was older, and he wasn't the emperor. And he only was appointed interim emperor by the Council of Elders, Vidura, Bhishma, and was it Dronacharya? The Council of Elders who appointed him in the interim. They tasked him with two things. The first was to be the interim ruler, because a kingdom without a head is like, a body without a head. It won't function properly. So they tasked him with that, taking on the position of king, while the second part of his responsibility, while he was responsible for raising the five brothers, the Pandava boys, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahdev. That was what he was tasked with. So the question again remains: why Dhritarashtra was only interim king? Why wasn't he just king to begin with? And even if he wasn't king to begin with, that Pandu was so much more advanced than him in many different ways that it was inevitable, because that's also can be the case. That if someone is extremely advanced and even they're younger, they can be put ahead of their seniors. So why, after Pandu died, then Dhritarashtra was there? He still wasn't made permanent king. Why is that the case? Shakti, have you thought about it?
No, Prabhu. It's the first time like hearing this question. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, okay, so Dhritarashtra was a blind king. So it is said it is his blindness. So one may say, oh, that's really, unfair that someone that's blind, that doesn't disqualify them from being a great person. And that's true. But that's not really what blind means. Yes, he was physically blind, but he was also very powerful, a powerful warrior, and he was a great personality. The very name Dritra Rashtra. Do you know what that means? Does anyone know what Drita Rashtra? Drit is it's the root. Sanskrit is a language. It's a very comprehensive language, and it has around 2,500 root words, and from all the language, these 2,500 root words serve as the basis for different words. So Drit is a very strong root word. Drit is also the root for Dharma, which we'll talk about in a great deal regarding this verse. So Drita means the upholder. That means the firm, that which upholds, that which is strong. And Rashtra means land or nation or family. So Rashtra can be the upholder. Drita Rashtra can be the upholder of the family. Whose shoulders the responsibility falls on. It could also mean, as I said, kingdom. It could also mean the universe. So Dhritarashtra was named the upholder of the nation, of the kingdom. That's why he was given that name, Dhritarashtra. And Sanjay means the one who is possessed of victory. He's the possessor of victory. So Dhritarashtra, the upholder, he was a great personality, but it was evident by his actions, the choices that he made, it became very evident that the blindness which disqualified him was not the physical blindness, but it was the spiritual blindness. How did he demonstrate that? He demonstrated it many ways. The first and foremost way that he demonstrated his blindness was the fact that he allowed his older son to run rampant on Dharma. Dharma is also the laws of the Supreme that uphold and keep together the universe. So it's very, Dharma is considered very seriously. And Dharma, it also comes from the root Drit. So it means to uphold. They are the laws that uphold the uniformity and the power and the potency of the universe. Just like gravity. Everywhere you go, there's gravity in greater and lesser degrees. And it has an effect on all living entities. So Dharma is this law, this universal law that is comprised of duty, responsibility, obligation, upholding morality, and promoting wisdom. It's all about making the right choices. And if you don't make the right choice, because, we're human beings and we err, having the ability to rectify a wrong choice. There's an old phrase, I forget who the author is right now. He said that the best remedy for a bad action in the past is good action in the present and the future. So Dharma also helps to guide us and to understand the distinction. Right now, this Earth planet and its residents are floating in a world of confusion. They don't know what to do and what not to do. You have one side which calls themselves liberal or progressive. They don't know what to do, so anything goes. And you have the other side, which is called conservative. They don't know what to do, but they have some limited understanding, something which gives them faith, and they're able to pass judgment on everything that disagrees with their narrow vision. This is what we have floating around when there is avidya. When avidya, and the result of avidya, which means lack of knowledge, is tamas. Tamas means ignorance. The result of not proper understanding is tamas. Tamas means ignorance. Ignorance means inability to see things as they are. And when you don't see things as they are, you see things as you are. So we don't, as long as we're afflicted by avidya, then we see things as we are. And if we are operating on the false ego platform, a misconception of who we are and what we are, if we're only thinking that we're this mass of cells and elements, then that's a misconception. Misconception leads to misperception. Misperception will lead us to ignorance and acting upon that ignorance. And that will be the cause of our suffering. And that's the whole reason Bhagavad Gita. So Dhritarashtra was supposed to be the upholder of the righteous principles that governed the nation, that he was in charge of. But he wasn't upholding. He allowed his son, out of attachment, he allowed his son to run rampant on dharma, to have an adharmic perspective on life and how he imposed that on others. And that's really what the blindness is all about, because there are many sages throughout the course of Vedic history that may have had some physical impairment, like who is it? Ashtavakra, for instance, a great, great sage who was deformed. His whole body was deformed in 8 different places. But he was a great sage. So really, the blindness that was attributed to Dhritarashtra and which disqualified him from actually having the throne in his possession was the fact that he was influenced by his attachment to his body and the extensions of his body called sons. He wanted the motivation was that not to do what was right, what was dharmic, but to do what would benefit and please his sons. So when he acted in that particular way, he showed his ignorance of dharma. And really, a king, according to Bhagavad Gita, is supposed to be a rajarshi. This is a compound word. Rajarshi has 2 words put together. Raja, Raja means king, and Rishi. Rishi means saint or saintly person or sadhu or sage, wise person. So a king, qualified king, is called Rajarshi. Imam Rajarsheo Vidu. Evam parampara praptam imam Rajarsheo Vidu. Krishna says that the wisdom is given to the saintly king, is passed down to the saintly king, so that that saintly king has the intelligence to facilitate education, education of humanity. When people are really, I hate to say this, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but people really are bewildered when it comes to what is a leader. Are they not? Does anyone want to make a case for people really know what a leader is? People really don't know what a leader. And in this technological age, this age of Kali Yuga, which is the Iron Age, which is not a highly realized environment that we are surrounded by, the education that is promoted by government, by governmental leaders, etc., is certainly not knowledge of the nature of the self. Where do we have in any university? Maybe there is some university that has something like, but most universities do not have the Department of the Science of the Self to discover the true nature of the self. So that is really, according to Bhagavad Gita, the position of leadership. So when we talk about Dhrita Rashtra, the upholder of the nation or the empire of Bharatvarsha, he wasn't qualified to do that. He didn't live and lead according to the principles of Dharma. And he actually facilitated adharma in the form of allowing his son to, try to, what his son did, Duryodhana did, was he tried to assassinate his competition. His competition for the throne, for inheritance of the throne, was the 5 Pandavas. All of the elders knew that the 5 Pandavas were the heirs apparent, and they supported that. But Dhritarashtra, by the influence of Duryodhana, he did not want to uphold that. So Dharma says you do uphold what's right. Adharma means you try to manipulate in an erroneous way, a way that is more pleasing to your temporary nature rather than your eternal nature. And we spoke about the 4 wheels, right? Did we speak about that? I gave a class shortly, so I'm a little confused. whether I gave you the four wheels, or I know I gave it in the last class I gave, not on Zoom, but
Yeah, it's
but
not on
do
Zoom,
we,
Prabhu.
huh?
Not on Zoom.
Not on Zoom?
Yeah.
So what the upholder of the principles of Dharma is supposed to guide humanity through their journey in life. And the metaphor that's used is that when you ride on a vehicle, you have four wheels, right? And these four wheels will take you through your journey in life. Now, metaphorically speaking, what are the four wheels? According to the Vedas, it's kama. Kama means gratification, sense gratification. Artha. Artha means economic development. It means job, it means money, it means possessions, it means land, house, etc. Kama, artha, those are two wheels. Those are the kind of material aspect of our life. And then the other two wheels are dharma and moksha. So dharma, we're going to speak about a little bit. Let's see what time it is so I don't run out of time. Yeah, I'll speak a little bit about it. Dharma means these laws by which we are educated to understand the right things to do, how to live our lives. There's even books in the Vedas called Dharma Shastras, a whole series of discussions and education which help us to understand what to do and what not to do. So, kama, sense gratification, artha, because everybody needs some gratification, and some gratification. That's just the nature of the soul, is to experience pleasure. Artha, economic development. In order to get that pleasure, to have that home and all that, you need some economic development. Dharma, in order for society to be guided properly on its journey, it has to act properly. And Dharma gives us the ability to act properly. Dharma also comes from the root dre, and that means to hold or support something which is established or firm, like law and order, duty, custom, the quality of life, the thing that regulates uh, the course of our life. Change, but by not participating in change, dealing with change, but not participating in the change. In other words, you can be totally enmeshed in the world of change that's going on, or you can be aloof or understand that this change is temporary and that's not really my nature, and not participate in that. These are all descriptions of Dharma, and living a Dharmic life gives us an opportunity to live in alignment with the laws of the universe. So you have macrocosm, the universe, the overarching body or field by which everything occurs, or you have microcosm. And the microcosm is called Chetra, or the body. This body is our universe. This is the welcome to the Lakshmi Nishringa universe, or welcome to Amy universe, or Trish universe, or Jai Krishna universe. We all have our universe, and there's lots and lots of living entities living in our universe. So this Kshetra, our field of activities, is our universe microcosmically. So how we act is a direct reflection of the laws of the macrocosm. So if we don't live in alignment, if the microcosmic universe, your field of activities, don't live in alignment with the macrocosmic universe, the universe that surrounds us and influences us in certain ways, if we don't live in harmony in alignment, in balance, then there's disturbance and there can never be peace. The mind can never be peaceful. Nashantaya. Nashantaya means no peace of mind, as opposed to shanti. Shanti means peace. So the harmony induces the harmony, the balance, all of these things, the alignment with the laws of the universe, the natural laws of the universe. If we allow our microcosm to align with those laws through the wheel of Dharma, then we can be peaceful and we can progress nicely. And the fourth wheel is called moksha. All the three wheels of our journey are subservient or in service to moksha. Moksha means we don't live our life just for the gratification and the economic development or just to be a good person. We're living those three things dharmically in such a way that we can understand what is the purpose of human life. It's described by many psychologists that purpose is really important for happiness in a person's life. When a person lives without purpose, they're not happy. If a person lives with purpose, it's easier for them to be happy, to be, have a purpose, a function, a direction, a goal, a focus. So those three wheels of kama, gratification, artha, economic development, dharma, proper behavior, proper living behavior, and duty, obligation, responsibilities, etc. For instance, if you're married, you're obliged, you have a responsibility towards your wife, and the wife has responsibility towards the husband, and the husband and wife have responsibility towards the children, and the family in general has a responsibility as citizens of a nation to the nation by paying taxes, by being good citizens, not committing crime, etc. All of these are part of the principle of dharma and dharmic behavior. But they should not be separate, vio. They should not be in separation from the goal of all of those, and that is moksha. To understand that the purpose of the human form of life is to understand that we are soul, and then to understand that that soul has a dharma distinct from the temporary dharma while we're in the body, and that's called sanatan dharma. Sanatan dharma means eternal responsibility, obligation. What are we made of? What intrinsically are we? What is our natural, eternal inclination? And that's described in Bhagavad Gita, that we are, as souls, we are part of the greater whole, the supreme God. And our Sanatan Dharma is in service to the greater whole. Just like you have a body and you have hands in the body. The hands are in service to the greater body, right? That is the function of the hand. The hand doesn't try to experience enjoyment separately. You don't have a hand diving into a bowl of pasta and eating it and going yum yum yum. The way the hand facilitates the body receiving that nourishment and that taste, etc. So the hand is in service to the body. Similarly, the soul, being a part of the supreme whole, a distinct and separate part of the supreme soul, but yet totally in relationship. Nityo, nityanam, chetanas, chetanam, eko bahunam, yo vidate kamam. That means there is a supreme eternal being, and there are many finite, tiny eternal beings. And the dharma of the tiny beings is in service to the supreme being. So when we are doing the other three properly, it creates an internal environment which is conducive for knowledge. The whole point of Dharma is to give us a conducive and controlled and peaceful environment that will help us to understand, to give us the peaceful mind, the placid mind, so that we will be able to see our reflection. If you go to a lake and the lake is all, you know, churning with many waves, the wind's blowing waves, and you really can't see reflection. But if the lake is placid, you can look and you can see your reflection. Similarly with the mind, if the mind is peaceful, then you can see your reflection. So these four wheels, if they are pumped full of the right pressure of air, I know it says on my tires, I have to keep, what is it, 38 pounds of pressure in my tires. So if it gets too low, then, it won't balance properly and it'll cause drag and greater fuel consumption, etc. But if I keep my eye on all four wheels and make sure that they have the proper amount of pressure, that they're not wearing on one side, they're being rotated and all that, then the wheels serve to facilitate my journey. And I can go from here back up to New Jersey to visit my friends and relatives in my car, and it's a smooth ride. But if the wheels are not proper, I get a flat tire, I lose air, whatever may happen, and the four wheels are not working in conjunction with each other, then my journey becomes very difficult. So when we just focus on two of the four wheels, just sense gratification. I do everything for me so that I'm happy, that I'm pleased, and then I'm working to get these things that I think will make happy: money or fame or position or power. These are the things and under the influence of tamas or ignorance, we think will make us happy. But if that's the case, then every single billionaire or millionaire would be like dancing. They would be giddy because they got all the money and they got power. And no, suicide is prevalent amongst very wealthy people also. So it's proven a fact that it's not necessarily money that will make you happy, but it is what you understand about the true nature of the self. And you can live under a tree, like the six Goswamis of Vrindavan. They slept under a different tree each evening, and they were totally ecstatic, sometimes laughing and crying just by chanting God's names. So this is the goal of Dharma and Kama and Artha, to live under a dharmic sphere, and eventually that will create a mental, intellectual environment and a physical environment by which we can shoot for moksha or liberation or freedom from the being shackled to the bodily concept of life. So I'm run out of time. We'll continue where I left off. Remind me, we'll continue on Dharma and then go from there to the first chapter. It's very, very important to understand the first verse because it is a very important verse. And what we'll do with other verses in the first chapter, we'll kind of read them through. If it needs any explanation, I'll give a little explanation, and then I'll stop at the really important and relevant verses from there because the Gita is so rich in meaning and it is so deep in terms of its understanding. That just studying one verse can give us, you know, immense amount of realization. So that's why I'm not rushing through it. I hope you all don't mind. I hope you all are satisfied with that approach to the Gita. And, I really want to help you as much as possible because Gita is not meant as just a philosophical treatise. It's meant for application too. So by studying it deeply, hopefully it'll give you inspiration to apply it in your daily life. So, if you have any questions or comments or realizations you'd like to share with us, I'd be happy to entertain uh, any of those
I do.
aforementioned.
I
Who's I do? Oh,
Talaga.
Anurag.
Ano ba? Yeah.
Yes.
Would you recommend for us to read the verse before the class, or or how far we should read for the class?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellent point. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, I would recommend while we're discussing the first chapter, you should do as your homework, read the first chapter. In this way, not all the verses will we spend as much time as we're spending on this first verse because they're not all as important. But yes, I would recommend you read the first chapter while we're talking about the first chapter, and then your homework would be to read the second chapter while we're reading the second chapter. And this way, you already have some familiarity with it. Yes, thank you very much for that point. Really
Uh,
good point, very practical point.
the first chapter has many verses, though.
46.
Oh, yes. So I was just thinking maybe half,
Well,
or
you
however.
got a whole week.
No, I know, but if we're gonna go in the class,
Divide 7 into 46, and what do you get?
okay.
Yeah, like 6.25,
No,
something like that.
it's not about that. It's just like because we're going like each class, like each verse, or I don't know how.
Yes. Well, some places we're going to just read a lot through. So, I mean, if you can't, I know many of you are working people, and if you can read a few verses a day and get halfway through, it's 46. If you can get, the 23 verses in, I think that will cover you for the next class. And even if it doesn't, all the way up until like around 37, it's kind of, and specifically in the first chapter, it's kind of like dealing with various personalities, introducing us to various personalities and the setting of the Gita. Um, so, yeah, you can do it that way. But that's a very good point. As your homework, as preparation for the class, it's good to read some at least. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you for that. Anyone else have any very good recommendations, like Anuradha's recommendation,
I
or
have
anyone
something
have
to
any
say.
questions?
If anyone doesn't have a Bhagavad Gita, let us know.
Okay, thank you, Sri Hari. What does that mean? That means you're gonna give them a Gita, send them a Gita, they'll buy a Gita from you, or what does that exactly mean?
Well, we have a book distribution.
Okay, so you will I don't
Pass
have
it
the
along.
small. Oh yeah, I do have it right here.
You could put a link in the group text, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, you're talking about this, right? The paperback?
We can see it.
Sri Hari. So I think, I don't know if he hears me, but I think that's what he's talking about. If anyone is in need, that particular version is translated by my teacher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It's the one I use. So it's a very comprehensive one. And if you're going to invest in the Gita, it comes with the Sanskrit, the Roman transliteration of the Sanskrit so you can read it, the word for word, each word how it's translated, then the English translation of the verse itself, and then any commentary that my teacher provided in order to make the verse clear. So it's a very comprehensive one.
Yes,
So,
that's what I was talking
how,
about.
hmm? How will we do that? What's the practicality of that, Sri Hari?
It could be, during the week, the students can read ahead. And so when you're talking, they'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know, but you said that if they need one, you have them. So, like for
Oh, the book
instance,
distribution.
Dana lives in Orlando, and Joanna and Amy are up in New Jersey, and so will you send it to them, or what are you saying?
They can read online, Prabhu, weatherbase.io.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Where is it?
Weatherbase,
Uh-huh.
weatherbase.io. That's the website that will have all the Prabhupada's books.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So, okay, wonderful. Okay, good. There you
I mean,
go.
if people are not in like Fort Lauderdale and they want to get a copy, they should at least like they can buy it in Amazon. Or if they can't afford, they can still read it online, weatherbase.io.
Okay,
Hey,
okay, great.
Lakshmi,
Database.
we
Yeah.
we Gita, but it's not the version you spoke of. If I
Okay.
but the author that this is the one that we got for our class.
Yeah.
But if we want, can you email? It was a very long name, the author of your version.
Yes, I can email Amy that too. It's not a problem.
Do,
Yeah.
do we have
I
Can someone share the link of the online version they were talking about?
Yeah,
uh-huh.
I've texted that in the chat
He put
box.
it in the chat box.
Yeah, it's in the chat box. If you want to read online, you can read online. If you want to get a copy, then you can look for the Bhagavad Gita as it is. It's available on Amazon. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Okay, so if anybody needs a hard copy and they can get it, then I can like send it to them. Like, I can donate that hardcover book to them.
Oh, yes. Is that Bharat Shrestha?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Oh, okay. So for those of you that would like a copy, Bharat Shrestha, who's one of the participants in this, said he'll donate it to you, a nice hard copy. You just need to tell him the address. Excuse me. What you can do is you can text me your address, and I'll pass it on to him.
Yes, that would be the
Okay.
best way.
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Bart, for your service in that regard.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Wonderful.
So I have a question, or maybe more like a comment.
Okay, Trish.
So we talked about it last week when we talked about Arjuna's misperception and how that led to his dejection. When we have misperception, because our thoughts are always building scenarios and thinking about what other people are thinking, how can you tell the difference between misperception and intuition? Because your intuition is so strong. I'm very strong with my intuition, and that's one of those lines that I'm always trying to navigate.
I would say that dharmically, your intuition will line up with the principles of Dharma. We all have a sense of what's good and what's bad, right? I mean, we all have that kind of innate feeling of this is the right thing to do, this is the wrong thing to do. Like my son, when he does the wrong thing, it's like he's got this look on his face like, oops. He knows. So intuitively, it will because you are a microcosm you're the microcosm universe. It will line up with the principles of Dharma of the universe. And the book of Gita is meant to give us insight into those principles. So it kind of works hand in hand. As I've said, the Gita is just not a philosophical treatise, but it is meant to to help us live our life day to day practically and confront head on the issues that we're dealing with. So it will line up, it will align itself if intuitive. Bhakti yoga is a very intuitive yoga system. It relies heavily on intuition, but there's a point in bhakti, you have to come to a certain point of purification because what I said to you before last week, I said Vishada leads to prasada. And prasada, one of the definitions of prasada is purification. So when Vishada becomes its yoga, it will purify your heart. And the result of purification of the heart is your intuition also becomes purified. What you are perceiving intuitively is automatically lining up with the principles, the universal principles of Dharma. So it works hand in hand. So that is another reason why we study Bhagavad Gita, not only to get wisdom, but to purify the heart. And when we purify the heart, then we are able to have that change of perception because misperception becomes accurate perception when there's transformation. And transformation comes when there's purification. And the purification comes when we put ourselves in contact in this, especially in this day and age, with spiritual sound vibration, such as Bhagavad Gita or Kirtan or Japa. There are many different methods within the methodology. While yoga that Krishna is talking about is methodology, within the methodology are methods. And the method, primarily in this day and age, Kali Yuga, is Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. So what we're doing now, hearing and chanting the wisdom of the Gita, is purifying our heart. It's calming our mind. It's causing, if we do it with the proper mood, it's causing the meditative mood. It will cause realizations, those aha moments. It'll cause you to have those aha moments. I mean, all the time. 54, 55 years later, I'm reading the Gita. Oh my God, how did I miss that all these years? The aha moments are endless. So this is, how the intuition is there. You have to distinguish the real challenge is distinguishing between intuition and mind. When the mind is in Sanskrit, it's called Manoratena. Manoratena means the chariot of the mind. So when the chariot of the mind has a driver who knows what they're doing, then the chariot can go straight. But if the chariot driver doesn't know what they're doing, the horses can run wild and the chariot will go all over the place. So we have to control the mind. Krishna says that all over the Bhagavad Gita. For that person who controls the mind can become his best friend, his or her best friend. For one who doesn't control the mind, it's our worst enemy. For one who controls the mind, Krishna says in the 6th chapter, the super soul is already reached. Divinity within the heart is already reached. And divinity within the heart, the super soul, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the 15th chapter, Sarvasya chaham ridi sanavisto matak smriti organam aponam cha, that for all living entities, that I am seated within your heart. And from me, Krishna, the divinity within the heart, from me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So even that intuitiveness is divinely guided when we put into practice the methodology. And that's why it's so important, to do it. How does Patanjali describe sadhana? Something that's regularly performed, spiritual practice that's regularly performed over a long period of time. That's like 15th or 16th sutra in the first pada. That's how he describes sadhana. Regularly performed over a long period of time. So, Bhagavad Gita, regularly performed, mean reading it, getting it into the habit of making it your daily meditation, even if it's just one verse. You pick it up, I keep it at the side of my bed, pick it up, read a verse, spark something all day long. I have chanting of japa constantly going in my house and kirtan, constantly. So, you know how we kind of tune in and tune out? Our mind is taking us here and there, and then all of a sudden the chanting brings you back. It's that tether, you can be a helium balloon and start floating away, but if you're tethered, then it stops you from. So I have this sound vibration going on all the time in my house because when that moment is free, it's a valuable moment. The great sages in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it said that we cannot buy back one moment of time for all the gold in the world, emphasizing the importance of time utilization in terms of our spiritual pursuit. We cannot buy back a moment of time for all the gold in the world. So that's why it's really important to structure your life, just like Ayurveda. What is the big thing in Ayurveda? Lifestyle, right? Lifestyle and diet. And diet is actually part of your lifestyle. Why is it so important? Because lifestyle helps you to regulate, keeps you healthy, it helps to control the mind, etc. So part of our lifestyle in terms of our yoga, our practice of yoga, is to have a structure regularly performed and over a long period of time. Don't give up. Commit it. When you commit to a relationship, proof of your love is commitment, right, Mirabai and Devendra? That's what I said in your marriage ceremony. That one of the manifestations of love is commitment. Affection is there, trust is there, respect is there, but commitment's like a practical demonstration that you're willing to see it through thick and through thin. So we have to fall in love with the methodology, and commit to it. And I found, okay, I may be getting myself into trouble here, but I found myself sometimes in the yoga community, there's not that commitment to the journey. Not everybody, I can't say that. I've met a lot of very, very advanced souls, but there's not an emphasis on that depth of commitment. But it's necessary. It's what we need to practice. Devendra, you told me how many years since the 80s, early 80s, you've been practicing? Yeah, that's commitment. That's a commitment. And even if you're just starting now, to get serious, it's okay. Now the time is to make commitment. And the way you situate yourself in commitment is through association. If you associate with those who are committed to their spiritual journey and the methodology which is helping them on their journey and has helped them and you seek out that association, then that helps you also to develop faith in the methodology, in the system. And it also helps you to discern, what is the methodology that you want to follow, that you want to practice. For me, I fell in love with bhakti from the beginning. I dabbled with Jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge. I dabbled with Buddhism, but when I met my teacher, and the whole concept of loving devotion to the Supreme through service, it just rang true to me. It just, yeah, I can do that. And I think it was the right choice because I'm still trying. So does that address your question, Trish?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Anyone else have anything they would like to ask? Be happy to.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
My reverences. I
Shakti,
have
And
I have a
someone is
Shakti,
question,
asking.
but I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead. It's okay. I can
No,
wait.
mine is like Ratha Yatra, Puerto Rico related.
oh, okay. Okay. If you have a question about class, ask now, and then I'll address the Rath Yatra Puerto Rico question. There was a beautiful festival that I attended this year, what she's talking about, in Puerto Rico, San Juan, Puerto Rico, big parade and festival, and it was absolutely amazing. So I spent 4 years well, actually, I spent more than 4 years of my life in Puerto Rico. I spent 6 years total, but it was really wonderful to be there. I really connect with the Puerto Rican people and the island, etc. But who has the question? I,
I have to get going. I'm sorry, but looking forward to next week.
Thank you. Yeah, we've gone a little bit over. I don't normally do that.
Hare
So
Krishna,
thanks,
Prabhu.
Amy. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just want to say thank you so much for explaining the first verse of Bhagavad Gita. It's so clear. You have given the entire essence in this one sloka. Regarding your question, why he was made interim king, I was thinking like Bhishma, he already took a vow that he will not take the position as king. And
Right.
Vidura, because he was born to a maid, he was not suitable for the position, right? And then we
Right.
only have like two, Pandu and Dhritarashtra, and Pandu passed away. So the only person who's left is Dhritarashtra. But as you said, he was blinded because of his attachment to his son.
Yes.
If everyone made him as a king, then it'll obviously go to Duryodhana as a heir, right? It's not
No,
going to
that
be.
was the stipulation.
Mhm.
That's why I expressly state interim king.
Yes, yes,
He was not made. He was not
yeah,
coronated emperor.
yeah. So that's what I
It
was.
was it was very clear by the elders
Yes.
what his duty was
Hmm.
in the interim
Yes,
until Yudhisthira is old enough. You're
yes.
to rule. But in addition, you're to make sure that these 5 boys get the proper training.
Hmm.
And he did not do that.
Yes.
He did not do that. He rather than get the proper training, he accommodated his son to actually try to assassinate them.
Hmm.
So that is adharma. It's adharma. It's not proper, not what he should be doing, and that's why he should not be king.
Yes. And the
And that's why we have impeachment in our country here, because when someone acts inappropriately, self-centeredly, our founding fathers knew that there had to be a mechanism to get him out.
Mhm.
Can't let him go on and destroy things. Of course, I don't know what's going on now, but they're at least.
Yeah.
I don't want to wax political here, but at least there is legally, constitutionally, there is a mechanism to get someone who's not qualified, get them
Hmm.
out.
Yeah.
And for Dhritarashtra, it was clear, you're not coronated the king.
Hmm.
You're only doing this in service to the empire.
Yes.
And that's what he did not
Yeah.
accept.
And
Ultimately,
it should be
yeah,
ideally the Yudhishthir who has to be after Pandu, but and there's no one else. So they put all the five brothers in his care, and then yeah.
yeah.
Thank you,
They put him
Prabhuji.
in his care, and then he
Yeah.
facilitated his elder son to try
Hmm.
to assassinate them.
Right.
So that's very clear, a very clear display of his blindness,
Hmm.
and thus his disqualification. In the Gita is very, very, very specific. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tatat ivetaro janaha. That the king is the leader, and he serves as an example for all the world to pursue. And what kind of example do we have nowadays in leadership? Oh my God. Where? Where do we see? Krishna says that to be a leader, you have to be a good role model, a very, very positive role model, not only moralistically, ethically like that, but also spiritually. And where in the world do we see that? We see that really it's the most ambitious, the most self-centered, ambitious individuals who have the perseverance and determination to claw their way to the top. That's what we have. And that's why the world is, not doing so well, because that's what we got as leaders. Now, democracy is really a popularity contest. It's not based on qualification. It's who puts on the best show, who spends the most money, who grabs the headlines. That's what it is.
It's so amazing how Prabhupada mentioned democracy. It's not democracy, it's democracy.
You're demon
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
Prabhupada said.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the concept is good, but really the citizenry has to be knowledgeable. They have to be living dharmically in order to have a say in government and the say in leadership. I mean, the principle of democracy is that the citizenry has say in who leads them. That's okay. But if you really are not able to see through the the charade, the act, you're not able to see that, and you fall prey to the showmanship, then democracy cannot work that way. Won't work. Okay. Thank you so much for hanging in there. We went a little over this time. I try to keep prompt because I know you're all busy. And Mirba, are you in Orlando?
No, I clicked on Zoom and realized that I'm still logged in as Dana. She
Oh,
wrote
okay.
the
All right.
wedding.
Okay.
I'm like,
I was going to say.
oh, Dana's on here. How cool. And then I clicked on the video and realized that Dana's me.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I do the same thing. My wife, sometimes I don't pay attention to the name,
yeah.
and it'll have her name there, and she'll come running in, and
Well, I think
you
I'm
see
on her
hand come.
account.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to log off and log back on as me. Yeah. But I just wanted to say, the beauty about, or what I've been getting the message is the most important thing about Dharma and living dharmically is that really it's the only way to find true happiness, you know, because everything else you think, you know, when you're out for yourself, there really, you can't find true happiness. It's, there's never enough, you know, but when you're living dharmically or, you know, for other people in service, then, you know, then you start to feel true happiness when it's not about you and you really start to feel that it's about unity, you know.
I mean, even the research, they have ample research data which shows that giving is a better experience than receiving. People are happier when they give. And that's
Yeah.
because that's our nature. Our nature is to give in service to each other and to the Supreme, ultimately to the Supreme, to give in service. And then we feel, we feel that happiness.
Yeah.
So, okay, you have a question about the Rath Yatra? Hey, Triana, Hare Krishna, I'm sorry.
Hare
How are
Krishna,
you
I'm
and your,
here,
yeah, how are you and your beautiful baby doing? Okay?
surviving,
Okay.
but he's perfect.
Right. If you want to leave, you guys can check out. Was it you,
Okay.
Triana, that had the
Hare Krishna,
question
nice to
about
listen to you.
Haribo? Hare
Okay, good
Krishna. Thank
night.
you.
See you
Good
next week.
night, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank
Krishna,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Krishna.
Haribo. Who had the question? Was it Maharatri or was it Triana about
I
Puerto
have a
Rico?
question for Ratha Yatra, but it's about Puerto Rico. There's a like changes coming. We have a
Okay.
meeting on March to change location for El Escambrón. First off,
Escambron.
what do you think of the Escambrón?
I love Escambron, but is it going to be at a time when it's crowded?
It said the date for Ratha Yatra is set to be December 27, I think. So I'm not sure. I don't hang out on
Are
that area.
is the change coming from your side, or is it change coming from the
No,
city?
the change is coming from Jaisida.
Oh, really?
She's
Hmm.
the one pushing to do it. I just serve, so I just do paperwork and whatever I get sent to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's going on. And there's a meeting on the 27th this month with a director to change the Ratha Yatra there. My thought was leave the Ratha Yatra where it was and make another festival. But I think that's too hard.
Absolutely. I don't think so. You don't have to make it a big deal, big feast and big stage performance and all that.
So I just
I
barely
mean,
got the municipality to endorse uh where the tarima, how do you say it in English? I'm sorry, brain fart. The stage, the municipality gave it in donation this last year, and they gave up some carpas to hold on, the shade and everything. So that was a big save for Ratayata. So I'm hoping that
great.
it will work for Escambron too.
And what
Um,
does Jaistita expressed why he feels that Escambron will be a better
she went.
venue?
There was a festival called Karma Fest done there, and she went, which is super nice. But I think it was a different concept for what it was made in. But she liked the venue, and that we're pushing for it. And well, let's see what happens. I guess Krishna will decide where he wants
Yeah,
to Ratha
I,
Yatra
I
to be
really
done.
have to think. I mean, I know Escambron very well. I've been there many, many
I can
times.
send you the pictures of the map where it's gonna be set up,
Okay.
and then you can like give me a feedback. But my main question is because that's the first change. The second change is on the flyer. it says in all the years it said Ratha Yatra, and then like in the bottom after Prabhupada and everything, it says Krishna Fest. And she suggested or wants to change it to Kirtan Fest in the flyer. So I don't know how I have to present all this paperwork for next week, and I want to make
It,
sure that I hand it
it,
out
it,
properly.
it depends who you're marketing it to.
Okay,
Excuse
so
me.
the Krishna Fest or Krishna or Kirtan Fest doesn't matter.
I don't think so.
Okay,
From
good.
from from Jai Sita's perspective, she's probably thinking yoga community, and
Kirtan,
yoga,
exactly.
yeah, yoga community would be more attracted to kirtan. But
Okay.
is that our focus? I don't know. You have to talk it amongst yourselves. What in the venue, the current venue of downtown, what who are you exposing that to? Are you exposing that to the Rock Outfit to Puerto Ricans, or is it a lot of tourists who are just
I think it's
visiting
still
there?
gonna be the same public. If it's gonna be in Escambron, I think the investment for marketing has to be bigger because you actually have to get people there.
Yeah, and the limitation in Escambron
All the people
is
that are
parking.
going there are the beach goers, you know, and at that time, I don't know if the beach is like the most attractive at that time of year.
Well, the thing about Escambron is the parking lot fills up.
That's another one. Yes.
I've been there a couple of times, couldn't get in
The
because
parking
I went too
is
late.
yeah.
That's
But that
why I
time of
always,
year, I
yep.
don't know if the beach, yeah, but the beach always is full. So that's going on. And well, I'm doing all the paperwork and I just wanted to some feedback and
If you think the parking, the lot can accommodate as many people as you get there, like you said, you're right. For Puerto Ricans, it's the winter, and they're not
right.
usually going to they're not usually going to the beach. But for a person who comes from New Jersey or New York,
That
80
that time of
degrees.
year is no problem, exactly. So basically, it'll be more for tourists, if it's on that point of view. Well, it's all San Juan. It's mostly for tourists also, but a lot of locals stop by anyways.
Yeah, they may go not to swim, but to do a barbecue or something like that.
So yeah, my suggestion would be if it says Cambron that the marketing should go up, like the promotions and how would you expose the festival with more time? Like a billboard,
Yeah,
maybe have a Krishna billboard since if we get the stage again for free and the car pass and other stuff they gave us, maybe they can invest it in that in billboards and marketing so that people
yeah,
can actually make it there.
yeah, and social media is really important to do an
We did
effective.
like a sponsor thing in Facebook, first time doing it, but I think that this year maybe it should be a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
All right, so that's the update. And Escambron at
thank
first
you.
sounded scary, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, well, let me know how it progresses, okay?
Yeah, we have a meeting for next week with Narayan and Guranga
Yeah,
Charandas to
I'd
go
be
to the
interested
area
I'd be interested to hear how they respond to that too.
because we have to go there and take measurements for the carroza.
Is the stage at the where you enter at the opposite end there of that road?
I'm gonna send you a picture of what
Okay.
the map is gonna look like if it was the festival there.
All right, thank you.
And we'll keep talking. Thank you so much for your time, Prabhu. I know
Okay,
you're
Haribo
tired.
Chan.
Talk to the family. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay.